Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to.
Join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical, transformational journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. My name is Jaye, and this is Pod 144, Part 2 of the 143. And I'm here with my co-host, as always, Leta Herman.
Yes, and welcome back, everyone. And we're excited to continue our interview with Deng Ming-Dao. We really enjoyed exploring what creativity is about in life. And it's not about talent. It's about showing up. Ming-Dao shares this wisdom about building a daily practice, tuning into authentic inspiration and trusting your inner compass.
And it's for creativity. It's for artists. It's just for people. You can use this on all facets of your life. In this conversation with Ming-Dao, we talk about the role of an artist in society, the healing and potential of creative expression, Leta. It's so important for me as an artist, as a student of Daoism, as a student of Alchemy. It just really resonated with me personally. And we talk about how to reclaim your attention from the world who's trying to take it from you all the time. I talk about this with our clients and with our students about how there's so many distractions. I call it the anti-social media, but we're just trying to really talk about how you can get that back for yourself. So it's a conversation about art, yes, creativity, yes, but it's more about that. It's about the inspired art of living, which is something near and dear to both of us in our hearts. So I hope everyone enjoys this second part of the conversation. And if you want to check out anything, go to the alchemylearningcenter.com. We have lots of stuff going on there.
And before we begin, we just want to say we're really excited. We just launched a new book, Cultivating the 13 Ghost Points. So you can also check that out on the website.
Yes. And if you're listening to this in the future, time travel back or go wherever you buy a book in the world and pick it up. That would be great because we would love the support. And we're so grateful to bring this information out to the world.
Yes.
So thank you for listening to the Inspired Action Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love this idea of these voices because when we're teaching alchemical Chinese medicine, we say a lot that we do long treatments a lot. When you're in a treatment with someone, you may get an idea. And we always say, wait a few minutes, wait before you speak, because whatever you say is going to insert into that healing process. So this makes me think about that idea of healing arts. The healing arts, it's as well an art form as the visual artist's art form, in that if you make a mistake, you get immediate feedback from the person. Oh, I think this about your mother. It's no, they might have quite a reaction to something that you say that's a good idea in your mind, but it wasn't a good idea for the treatment. So it's very similar.
This isn't about, creativity, but in my experience, when I've healed from something, I often will have a flashback, a memory of when this happened, and we're talking about, some physical pain and so on. And it's been long forgotten, but then the memory of how that injury happened or that was concurrent with the injury will come back to me. But this is important too, this kind of introspection, this kind of revelation. And that's why it's important to distinguish all the different ideas and feelings that come from inside us. They're not all going to be the muse, right? You have to distinguish between all these things. And still, when we're talking about inspiration, sometimes it's not enough, right? Sometimes just having the idea isn't enough. Or what if the idea is not a very, interesting one? You have to then look at it and really work with it.
Yeah, I often say that your heart has to align with the idea and develop the passion for it in order for it to actually get executed. You can have a lot of ideas, but if your heart isn't buying it and you don't feel that impetus to move forward, I call it giving ideas feet. They need some passion from within you, because otherwise we have 1,000, 10,000 ideas a day, probably.
But let's contextualize that. That means that some part of you knows the truth. That means that some part of you is keeping track of your path and where you're going and is making choices.
Yeah.
right? It's not a quixotic, capricious thing that goes, I don't like that. There's something that's guiding you if you find it and put your trust in it. And so what we should say to pair with being sensitive to these voices in inspiration is the importance of emptying yourself in meditation. Because emptying yourself and having it completely silent and blank allows you to reassess the voices when they come back. And it's important to clear things out. And you won't lose anything. It's like, oh, well, if I, empty myself, will anything happen again? Yes, it always comes back, but it comes back in a way that allows you to look at it with fresh eyes, right? So, but think about the heart and that trust that you have. A lot of people aren't very connected to that. They don't believe in it, or more importantly, they've been taught not to believe in it.
Yeah.
But we have to reassert that, connect with it, and trust that. Anybody would say, well, if you become an artist and you make $1 million a year, then you're a success. Will you be a success in your own eyes? Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't buy off your conscience if you make $1 million. There are plenty of rich people who are unhappy.
Yeah.
So, and then what about the opposite? What if your art never sells? Does that mean you were wrong? Does that mean you're a bad person? If you trust your heart, if your heart tells you this is where you need to go, then that's what you need to follow, because no external rewards and no external rejection is going to be a guide for what you need to do in life.
Beautiful. That is self-cultivation, ultimately.
That's right.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
So do you think, Ming-Dao, that every person is an artist?
Yes, every person is an artist, but 99% of it has been beaten out of them.
How do they get that innocence back? How do they get that inspiration, that motivation? When I talk to people and they're like, oh, you're so lucky, I don't have time to do art. I'm like, you have to make time. You have to find the time. You have to have priorities. And I still do a lot of self-cultivation in the morning and in the afternoon, all throughout my whole day. And it's just, for me, I don't have a choice. I have to express through art at this point in my
I want
life.
you to ask those people how much TV they watch. I want you to tell me what your screen time is.
Scrolling, right? I know.
So you do have time. And it's as simple as picking up a pencil and a piece of paper. It's as simple as humming something. It's as simple as saying, this just happened to me. How do I describe it?
Yeah.
How do I describe it in a way that lets someone else feel the same thing I felt? That doesn't take a lot of time, but it takes a little bit of attention, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if you go to those people and they go, well, I'm watching TV right now, don't bother me. Oh, they're capable of attention, aren't they?
It's true.
So,
It's true.
but again, we have been ruined. We've been taught to give our attention to what someone else wants us to look at.
Yeah.
The teacher wants us to look at this. The salesman wants us to look at this. You go through Costco and there's someone saying, oh, I'm selling this phone plan. I'm selling this. I'm selling this. All this attention, right? Everything wants our attention. Even if you drive down the street, you have to look at the stop signs, the stoplights. Is somebody crossing? We are capable of great attention, aren't we? I mean, actually, as a side comment, I'm frightened every time I get in the car because it's like, really, out of all these hundreds of people passing me by at 70 miles an hour, I'm putting my trust in the fact that they're paying attention.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So please, we are completely capable of attention, but attention has been co-opted by our society. And we have not been allowed to say we deserve attention for our own purposes. Even to meditate. Why are you meditating? What are you looking at? What are you paying attention to? We're not allowed to define what we want to attend to. Can we do that? And all you have to do is start little by little and shift. And here's the other part. People think, oh, but I'm no good. Oh, I tried to draw this and it doesn't look like the real thing. Or my hand is shaky. Doesn't matter. That's where you are. So anybody who's been a parent, do we mock a 3-year-old for not having the mind of a 30-year-old? We don't. But we won't extend that same kindness even to ourselves. So if you're not good at drawing or painting or music or whatever, and furthermore, you haven't ever been encouraged to be that way, naturally, it's going to take you some time to build up. And we're back at day by day again.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when I read that sentence, that simple thing you wrote, practice every day, I'm like, that's the way every day you get better and better. And we do 100-day challenges. And so, that's a framework, a little accountability. And, if that's, we're just trying to find baby steps to get people to commit to themselves. It doesn't really matter to us. It matters to them. Those are the things.
Just get a sketchbook and write in it every day.
I love that.
And let it be crap. Right. If you didn't feel like anything that day, just go, scribble, whatever, yes. Right? But after a while, when you look back in the last 5 days, all you did was go, well, then you think, well, maybe I can do a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right? And then guess what? It's also a process of elimination. Because we're talking about how do you find your inspiration, but also how do you let go of things that maybe don't deserve your attention anymore.
That's interesting.
The idea of drawing 12 fish. And you go, well, no, actually what I wanted to do was draw a bird. Now I don't have to draw a fish anymore. Right? But you won't know it until you externalize it and assess it. And that's how you progress.
I love this idea of the progression too, because we have so many acupuncturists that listen to this podcast, and I just keep making correlations to healing arts. As we treat people as a healing art, we sort of advance our own understanding of ourselves. We get the healing just as much as the people in the treatment room coming to see us. Because, like an art form, we are going through so much deep understanding of ourselves as healers. And as artists, I think this is the same exact process. It's this process of every day a new iteration of yourself shows up. In this case, in the studio versus the clinic. It shows up and it's an investigation of self, and it moves forward. So I really like that idea that you just said of the progression of it each day.
Let me make 2 points in response. One is, surely a healer who's been working for 5 years is more skilled than one who's been working for 5 days.
Yes.
So again, we're back to day by day. A healer who has been working for 30 years is going to be much more skilled than someone who just got out of school. Yes?
Yes.
And we just dismiss that as being, oh, that's just experience. But could it be that the actual involvement in this changes the person? That they actually become a different kind of person? Now, if you look at that, if you look at somebody you admire who is, has been practicing acupuncture for many decades, that's the result of self-cultivation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But the second point I want to make is that somebody who heals is enabling life. And people are confused about this, and they look into Taoism and they look about the way and so on. Why is Tao also defined as virtue and morality? The word Tao. And you go back to one line in the Tao Te Ching that says, Tao births life and virtue fosters. So therefore, Tao is virtuous because it births and supports life. And we get confused about virtue, like, oh, it's being a good person and so on. Our assignment as Taoists is to emulate Tao. And if Tao supports life, we need to support life too. So any endeavor that supports life is aligned with virtue and with Tao. And that's what healers do. They are aligned with life. They're working with the person's chi, the very life force of the person. And so they are giving and supporting life. And is it any surprise that in turn they're sustained? That they find themselves healed? Why? Because life is a process of exchange. And the dreary truth is that so many people in life only take. They give nothing back. But in an endeavor like acupuncture, there is exchange. And that's why both healer and the healed are sustained. And that's something that we should remember.
And this is where I think some artists struggle because they don't think that art is as important. And this is a question that Jaye and I have talked a lot about, not in the podcast yet, but why is it that our society puts more importance on the healing role than the artist role?
Well, because healers can charge a lot of money and people get desperate and they have a problem, a pain, or something that nobody else can take care of, and so they'll go to them. Nobody is going to go to an artist and say, I have a pain in my foot and I really need your painting.
Right.
And yet, have you been to anybody's house where there's nothing on the walls?
Or even what you said earlier, the idea that feeling can flow into poetry or art can be healing for someone who's having grief or some kind of emotional state. They encounter the art and it heals them.
Yes, it's important because they recognize something in that art. They recognize that that piece of art is expressing better than they can at the moment what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Now, that's why an artist can't be discouraged. It doesn't mean that your art is going to have an immediate impact. And people have pointed out, for example, that a poem can be a message in a bottle. And sometimes we come across a poem and go, oh my God, this is perfect. And then we look it up and wait, this was written in the 17th century by somebody like 5,000 miles away. Is that possible? That he or she knows me so well. It's because they were in touch with something universal. And they are not concerned with whether or not they're around to collect a fee for your feelings, right? But let me turn that around for a minute. Think of all the sages, all the Chinese classics, all the literature that we have. Those authors accrue nothing. They're all dead. Why did they bother? And because they had hope for the future, they had the confidence that this wisdom and these feelings would be needed. And so they left those things for us. Well, shouldn't we do the same? What are we
Yeah.
going to leave for other people so that they similarly might be sustained, even though we will never meet them, we will never make a dime from their admiration? There's more to life than just, oh, I'm an artist to make money. That's, not very helpful, really.
Do you think there's spiritual art, like like a category or spiritual art, or it's just spirit comes through the artist onto a canvas or words?
Well, do you mean that there's art that's intended to be spiritual, or are you saying that there should be a spiritual component to all art?
Well, if people ask me what my I don't have conventional painting. I just right now I'm in this phase where I paint when I'm meditating. I have like colors or different things, so I then paint in the studio what comes through if I try to recall that time, which was that morning or the night before. And so I feel like it's not commercial as far as I'm trying to sell it, but I feel like there's like a infusion of me in my self-cultivation, whatever level that is, into that work. And it's kind of what you said. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to express what I do. And I love what you wrote about not putting in human figures in your work. And so I have this thing I've been this past maybe year or so, I've been putting in like a little symbol of what it's me meditating. And so I did it like a little shape, but I love that idea of not putting too much humanity, of trying to make someone feel something. And I was wondering, when you do your art, like, how does that what do you feel about that?
Well, are you perhaps saying you don't want to pander to an audience? You're not
Pretty
trying to
much.
make anyone feel something. It's like, this might be a grotesque example, but if I make erotic paintings, I know that I'm going to get a certain response, and I probably could make a lot of money doing that, right? But
Right.
I might not be I wouldn't be very interested in doing that, because it's not about expressing myself then. It's about just manipulating an audience, right? And so you don't want to do that. And so, how could your art not be spiritual? Because it's coming from inside you, and it's coming as a response to your meditation. But I want to point out one little thing about what you're saying. By putting that symbol of yourself in there, you're establishing scale.
Right.
You
You
see,
said you mentioned that. Yes.
and so, I'm have kind of lost my patience with the scholarly view that Chinese landscape painting has a little person in there just to show the humbleness of people. It's just such a trope. But one obvious function to that is it provides the scale. Without that little person in there, you don't know if it's a rock or a mountain. And so what you're doing is you are establishing scale by putting that in there.
Yeah. Like, and someone asked me, like, what are you trying to get someone to feel? And I'm like, I just would like, in my own selfish way, that if someone took a minute out of their busy life and their craziness and took a minute and just had a thought or a feeling or an expression by looking at a painting or a piece of work, that even if that's all I need is them to just stop for a second and, like, I don't even need that actually, but just that's my inner thought of, after I'm done and I feel like, this is what this piece was supposed to be. That's all I don't really have any goals of it, but that's what I'd like, if they could just stop for a second and see the beauty or the color or have a thought or an original thought or original feeling or something. And I don't know if you ever have that same kind of, what do you do when you're done with your painting? What do you wish for as you send it out into the world, or don't send it out into the world?
Okay, so there are a number of
I
times.
know it's a lot. Sorry.
So
Yeah.
I used to be upset when someone didn't see in my paintings what I thought I had put in.
Mm-hmm.
And only recently did I understand something different. And I did a painting of a river in a canyon. And someone I sent the painting to said she thought she saw a spine. And then I thought, isn't this what art is for? art is so that each viewer can engage in it and see something different, not necessarily what the artist wants them to see. I mean, the artist has to have a thesis and a point, but if they see something different, this is actually the wonder of art, that
Yes.
different people can see different things in them, right? And so that's, I think, important for every artist to understand. It's not about control or you didn't see what I wanted you to see, so I'm upset. It's about providing an opportunity for someone to engage in art and have their own response to it.
That's what I was trying to like say. You said it much better than I did, but that's how I feel like right now in my life. That's how I feel about when I finish a piece. And so yeah, that's interesting, Ming-Dao. Like, yeah, I
And
like that.
as for sending pieces out into the world, they're not yours anymore. That's my feeling,
Yeah,
right? It's an
talking to.
independent thing. And let's say I send, 20 paintings out in the world. They'll each have their own fate, their own destiny, their own response. Some pieces have been really successful, and some pieces that I love the most, no one looks at. So it's a separate venture. What happens to your pieces out there? And let's not even talk about, the corrupt business side of art, right?
Monetary exchange. Yeah.
Or manipulation and so on. That's when I got out of college and became an artist. I just realized, oh my God, I just entered the dirtiest world possible, worse than drugs, and that's just the way it is. So that's something else that we should think about, because here we are talking about the purity of art.
Yeah.
And yet the market for art is on the other end of the scale. And it's important, I think, if I were counseling a young artist, it's so important to maintain your sanity and not to give in to the demands of the art world, because they are quixotic, they are capricious, and they are exploitive. So that's another topic, right? But
Yes.
none of this is possible unless we stay with the unless we say centered in the idea of being an artist, being creative, and having integrity in what we do.
Yeah, that's really nice too. I know that whole art world thing is another whole conversation because, you know, the Wu Wei, the inspired action, the purity, that's really what I love to talk about. I mean, every moment of my day, just creativity, I don't think about it. I just am creative. And as I'm sure with you as well, it just, whatever you do.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction. It's not, creativity isn't an activity. It's a state of being, right?
Yes.
You brought up Tai Chi. What are you using? Your four limbs, your body, right? It's not, I mean, yes, there are weapons and so on, but it's really about what comes out of you. And even if you're talking about a weapon, unless you put your own chi into it, it's just a thing. Yeah. So it's still about you doing something with what you have, what you were born with.
I like the idea of the creativity palace or the children palace in the 9 palaces too, because what you're saying, both of you, is like you're the parent of these forms that you're putting out in the world, and then they go live their own lives. And
they do.
You may be upset about that, like a lot of parents are, but
and like every parent, you hope not to get a phone call at 2 a.m. So.
Yeah. So what do you think that if you gave a painting to someone that would be a vehicle for healing? Like, like you gave it to them, they hung it on the wall. I mean, I know calligraphy, you could definitely do a symbol for that if you're a powerful, self-cultivator. I know a lot of master calligraphies have done that, but what do you think about the power of healing with art?
Don't you think the gift itself is healing? So the first thing
Absolutely.
someone's saying is that so-and-so gave me this piece. And if they treasure it and they focus on it, I mean, this is not about, the utility of the piece or the content of the piece. That's a secondary question. The fact that it was given to you is in itself makes it an amulet, a talisman for healing, right? Because the good wishes of the person go with it. Do you realize anything good in life has to be given to you? You ask someone to, love you, they have to agree. If you're good to your children and they want to come home, right? Somebody opens a door for you that you couldn't open yourself. Someone decides to mentor you. Even if you are in trouble on the street and someone comes and picks you up, none of that is about money, right?
Yeah.
We, again, have been so deluded by our society that we have forgotten the importance of goodwill and what a gift is. And I don't think there's anybody successful in life who hasn't been given gifts.
Absolutely.
So someone gave something to you. Now, if they gave something to you, let's say it's a painting or scroll or whatever, there's something for you to enter. So do you know that the traditional Chinese paintings, the painters aren't depicting a real place? You can't go somewhere and say, well, where's that mountain? Where's that waterfall? And the Chinese writers themselves are saying the painting is a journey through the mind. So someone gives you a painting, it doesn't have to be a landscape. It's a journey through their mind. They're giving you a kind of mandala, if you will, a place for you to go. And, if it's a good piece of art, it's going to mean something different every day, yes? I mean, if you've ever had that experience of a great painting and you go back and you see it and you go, wait, I see it differently today. Same painting, the painting hasn't moved, the paint hasn't left the canvas, nothing, but you see it differently. How can that not be called transformative?
Yeah, it's true. Right on. I think great. So, what are you working on personally? What are you working on in the artistic world for yourself as your gifts?
I'm painting every day now because I'm retiring from work, and so I'm working on landscape paintings because I've always loved landscapes. They're a combination of Asian ink and watercolor, and so that's what I'm working on. And I paint every day, and I'm still writing. I'm working on a book, and so yes, and I maintain Facebook posts and a blog and so on. So yes, I work every day. I create every day.
Do you think that we've been around this planet for a while, we've seen a lot of experiences, parenting and relationships. Do you think that your art matures as you get older and now you have more time that you can be like, this is my time, I'm doing my different mediums or whatever? How do you think that matures with each person as they go through the art stages? Because I'm not the same artist I was 20, 30 years ago. I'm much more patient, even though I'm curious every day. It's a new day. How about you?
Yes, I mean, I think I'm still meditating on time when I work. How long is this going to take? Oh, wait, now I have this idea. I go, oh my God, it's going to take 10 hours to do this idea. And then I do it. And then there are times when I say, don't work on it, look at it. I spend a lot of time looking at it. I spend more time looking at the piece than I used to do, right? Because it's not about the doing. I mean, I can paint. And if you think about a calligrapher, they might just seemingly dash something off in 5 minutes. But it's the preparation, the understanding, what you're going to do with your hand. And to go back to Tai Chi again, that's why it's mind and movement. Because if you don't know what you're doing or you don't have a thought, your movements aren't going to be very good. So yes, we change as we get older. And I was I still am, but I was a graphic designer for decades. And I thought, well, if I'm a designer, then I can paint too on the side. And I couldn't. It was the one thing I couldn't do on a schedule. I could fulfill all the assignments on a schedule. I could meet the budgets and everything. But that interfered with the idea of being an artist. I couldn't do it. I couldn't paint, and then the phone is ringing, and then, oh, you have to go do this, and right? I couldn't do it. And now I have unbroken time. I can really pay attention to that.
Right? Oh, I like that unbroken time.
Yeah. It can't be done with interruptions, except for the cat who comes. I always
we have the dog. I have the dog.
Feed me. Yes. But no, that's okay. But just having that time, not just to work, but to think about it. And that's important too. Is there a purpose? Yes, the purpose is that piece of art. And what will that accumulate to? That's not anything that I have to worry about. It's something I have to discover. You see, I'm going to make paintings, and then I think, well, what else can I do? Oh, I'm done with this. Or, all my paintings have been in cool colors. I need to do something with warm colors, and so on and so forth, right? And where will that end up? I don't know. But if I can't commit myself to that process, who will?
And do you think that you need a goal? Like, are you working for maybe having a show? I know you've had pieces that have been in different, museums and shows, but do you say I'm working on something, so maybe I might have a show in end of 2025 or 2026, or you just let all that go?
Well, for me, I've let all that go because I need to find out what I am supposed to do in my art. And if I think this is the trend now, or, I'm going to target this curator, or, then to me, that's false. It's not going to help me make good art. I make paintings I don't understand. Yes, it was what I intended to make, but why? And at the end of every painting, I look at how much work it was, and I think, this person is insane. It's like, who would do all this work? I need to find out the answers to those questions. I need to find out why I feel compelled to do it. I need to find out what the content is that I'm supposed to discover. And I don't know what that is. If I could tell it to you, it wouldn't be any good. Because the only way it can be articulated is through the work itself. I can't tell you I'm going to do this because, let's say I'm going to do a bunch of Daoist healing paintings. I'm sure they would be really stillborn.
Yeah.
If you try to shape it with intention, and this goes back to your, idea of inspiration. If you try to dictate, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like death.
Yeah,
it's like you start what do I think they want? No, I can't I can't do that either. And that's to do what I like, what I need, right. What I want.
I did that as a graphic designer.
Yeah.
So you want it blue, I'll make it blue. You want it big, I'll make it big. You want 50, I'll make you 50.
Isn't it an open-ended curiosity?
Of course, but that curiosity has to be it has to intersect with work. Mm-hmm. It can't just be, gee, I wonder what would happen.
Right.
You have to go find out each day. And then you go, oh, okay, that's a path I can follow. Or no, I don't need to go down that path, right? You have to have curiosity, yes.
Yeah.
But if you don't explore that curiosity, it's not going to take you very far.
I like that.
So what do you, I have one more question. What do you say to people who say, you have a gift, you're creative, you were born that way. I don't have that. I have to work hard and I'm not an artist. Like, people tell me that all the time. And I'm like, Just got to do you. You got to dig deep inside if you want to be an artist. So has anyone ever asked you that?
You walk into any art department or creative writing department and say that, and they'll kick you right out.
Right?
They will even find the word inspiration suspect. You know, you have to do the work and you have to understand what you're doing, right? And if you say, well, you have a gift like it just happened, sorry, is it an excuse from someone who won't do what they need to do?
Yeah.
Isn't that an easy thing? It's like saying, oh, she's so beautiful, everything happens for her. Of course, that's not true, right? If you have a gift, thank God you have a gift. Everyone has a gift. Some people just don't want to accept the gift they have. And meaning and truth is to do something with your gift, even if it isn't something that is conventional, even if it isn't something you understand. Plenty of people have a gift and they don't even understand it. I don't quite understand my art.
Yeah, I don't always see that on
Right?
mine.
So the gift isn't and why do I write about Taoism? Right? It's just like, well, why didn't I just write romance novels? Right? I would be so much more successful, right? So, well, just having a gift is hardly the be all and end all. You have to, that's just the beginning, and you have to do something with it. Everyone has a gift, but most people aren't doing anything with it. And those people say, well, you have a gift, so that lets me off the hook? Then that's obviously just an excuse.
I think that's so true. And it goes back to like, how do they spend their time and what are their priorities and what do they want to do with their lives?
So is there a lack of courage? Because, if you say, okay, I am going to turn the TV off, I'm going to try for a year to do this, and then you realize that you suck, you're supposed to go on to the next year. Not
thank you, right? And suck less.
right. And by the way, if you change the parameters of your art and scale it to what you can do, anyone can be successful. And this is the big mistake that people make when they're saying, I want to start being creative. They try to do everything. They look at the Sistine Chapel and go, well, unless I start with that, I'm no good. Right?
Yeah.
But, just go down to only black paint and 2-inch canvases and make 20 of them. Something really limited. Only allow yourself 5 minutes per painting. Right? You scale down the attempts to what you can do, and you'll find that the more restrictive your ideas are, sometimes the more it stimulates creativity, because you have to do something within certain parameters. Everybody who's making art is making art in response to parameters. So just think about the typical jazz standard. They're playing some song from a musical. They play the head. Then they improvise. If they didn't play the head, you wouldn't have a frame of reference. It's because they play the head that you can judge how magnificent their solo is. And then they come back and play the head and stop. There is a frame of reference all the time. In a painting, at the very least, it's the size and the shape of the canvas. Why is a square painting different from a landscape oriented painting versus a vertical portrait style? Why is a 2-inch painting different from a 2-foot painting, different than a 20-foot painting? Those, at the very least, are the frames of reference that the audience refers to. So if you're trying to start out as an artist and you're finding it daunting, close down the frame of reference to something you can manage. And then you can scale up from there.
I love that. So Can I ask you a simple question? What is art to you? What is art to you?
Art is a response to the world.
Beautiful.
And so, unless you're living in this world, you won't have any feelings and reactions to it. And you have to prize and value your reaction. You see, how many times were we told as children to shut up and sit down? How many times were you told, you have nothing to say? You see, it's not that we don't have it. It's just that well-meaning adults killed it.
Yeah.
Now, whether you're talking about someone putting their handprint on a cave wall tens of thousands of years ago, or whether you're talking about someone painting a still life, or a Chinese painter doing a landscape, or someone doing a wild public commission, it's a response to the world. And from that, other people can see that shape, think about how they might want to respond to the world, and you've then contributed something to other people. So that's my thought. Art is a response to the world.
It's really great. I can't wait to see what your future art is going to be.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm trying to get some onto a website, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know, definitely. I think that, like you said, what comes out of you, or comes out of me, or comes out of Leta, or anyone listening, it's your own personal response to the world. So how can that be wrong? Right? It's right. It's like a beautiful thing.
And maybe no one wants it, but that's secondary, right? That's not the point, really.
Yeah.
It's about shaping yourself and making a contribution. And if no one wants it, then it's okay. But you actually don't know, right? There are plenty of pieces that have been found after the artist is dead, unfortunately, that has become meaningful. Look at all the statues that we dig up and so on. Well, they weren't intended to be that way, and yet we have shaped our lives according to what we saw. So you can't.
I think that's transformation.
Yes.
And have faith. Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm so happy that we get to talk. I want to just thank you so much. Do you have any more questions, Leta?
Well, just are there specific websites if people wanted to find your work, or any thing that you would like them to know about?
My website is dengmingdao.com. So, that's pretty easy.
That's pretty easy.
And we will have that in the show notes as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
And is there anything else that you'd like to add, or?
No, it's a pleasure to talk to both of you. And I don't think that there's enough work being done to show the relationships between traditional Chinese medicine, Tai Chi, art, writing, and Taoism, and so on. I think in a traditional context, all those are of a piece. And it's not always easy to uncover that and to see those relationships. I think that one of the premises of traditional Chinese medicine is systems and the complexity of systems, how systems should work well, and so on. That goes counter to the prevailing thought that everything is down to one thing. What's the one thing that does this? What's the one cause of this, and so on? And so if we want to really benefit from the gifts of this traditional culture, we want to look at all the possibilities and understand that they always were one system that allows us to walk into it and benefit from it. So I'm glad both of you are doing this work, and it's going to be important for people to look further.
Thank you for doing this work and taking the time. Yeah. And hey, I think maybe a future book on this, Ming-Dao, art, creativity. I'm just throwing it out there for you.
No, I've been making notes for something like that, but again, then I get discouraged. I think, well, who's going to publish this? But I'm always,
Don't think that way.
Okay.
Take your own advice.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's something there. I just haven't quite found the right, entrance into it, because there's so many ideas that go beyond just art. But it becomes the art of living as well. But I'll have to work on that.
Okay, fantastic.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you so much for having me, and
Thank
I look
you.
forward to all the rest of your work too.
Wonderful.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there? We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at leta@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog.